Hello guys, today we are gonna continue with the C# form application or the Windows form application. And so far we have seen how to work with C# and its console application program, but in real life normally we use the Visual Studio with C# and either the Windows form or web-based application. And so a Windows form application is an application which is designed to run on a computer with a highly graphical user interface. Okay, it will not run on web browser, but it executes in all the function in the Windows form, not Unix or Linux. Okay, and so we can create some new objects with a graphical user interface like the button or the text box in the Visual C# Windows form application. Okay, and so in order to create a project, a new project, we should open the Visual Studio 19, and so if we push the button and then we select the C# in here, okay, and all platforms is currency for our application, and so we need to find the form application project. Okay, Windows form app, a project for creating an application with a Windows form user interface. Okay, and so we push the next, and then we need to give a specific application name, which we are called app 11 in this program, and then we need to find the correct path for this application. Okay, the app 11, the select folder is here, and then place solution and project in the same direction is pushed in the beginning, and then we're gonna create this project. Okay, and so Visual Studio creates our intelligent settings for our application. Opening all the file, and then we have this graphical design or the form application in here. Okay, there are three sections which needs to be discussed in here. So in the first place, Solution Explorer is also added in this program like the console application, but in the solution we have a solution and with its related to project solution name in here, and now we have the standard basic program CS or the C# programming, which includes the main function block. But in addition, the form CS1 is also included into this project, because all the user interface graphical solution or the function is included in this section. Apart from the console application, we have one additional object in here, and which is called the form1 CS. And so we are need to discuss this application section. In the first place, the program CS needs to be examined by us, and so standard using definition or the library addition usage is included in here, because the using a system is a namespace, and then if we are gonna use the system function, then we need to use or we need to add the using system library in here. But system has many namespace and class in itself. Okay, and so additionally we need to add this type of namespace at this point. But additionally, apart from the C# console programming, we need to add the system Windows forms namespace, which gives us a way to define a button or text box or the graphical user interface parts of the C# programming. Okay, and so in the same way, in a console application we have a namespace in here and then static class program at this point. In C++ programming, static class has its own function and property, and so we don't need to create an object to use it. But in C# programming, the same idea is current, okay? And so in order to run, or in order to start, or in order to execute this program, we need to add the one namespace and one static class program at this point. And so static void main function in here, which means that the program starts at this address pointer or the address block in this time. And so we have a application class in the form application. So these things are the settings for graphical programming or object oriented programming. In C++, we can also use the object-oriented notation, but in C# Windows Form application, we have one important property to create a graphical programming interface. Okay, and so DPI mode, visual style, and compatible text rendering default value must be given at this point, and then the application run. It's a function with the parameter of new form1 variable, which means that form1 is a dynamically structured variable to use the whole graphical programming interface. Okay, and so in order to run this program, or when running this program, then the new form1 is created in the main function block, and so main form1 is added at this point. Then if we create a form1, then the program must show us these block diagrams. Okay, and so if we run this program, then we have a standard basic programming graphical interface like this one. The form1 is a program, but with the form application notation. Okay, so the form1 is given in here, and then if we push the exit button or close button, then program stops. But how do we add the whole property of the text box or button or the some list notation at this point? Okay, in order to do that, the toolbox section at this point is given in here. The toolbox has a main property with the graphical user interface function and its attributes, which means that if we add the button to the form, we need to use the left hand click at this point, and then if we push this button or remove this button at this point, and then this button is added to the form application. And so if we run this program again, then we have the button1 block in here. Okay, if we push this button, then some function is called by the program or the C# programming. Okay, this is the basic notation of the graphical user or creating the graphical user interface in C# programming, which we are called the Windows Form application. Okay, the main difference between the console application and the form application is a graphical programming. Okay, in the same way, the C# programming does not change anything, but we can visualize, or we can create a picture, or we can create a button text box to use for the user. Okay, and so everybody use that program, but everybody cannot program or write a code for specific task, which we are called mechatronic engineer. to write a program to do robots moving and something like that. Okay, so it's the first task for our program. But in order to comprehend or understand the underlying mechanism of the usage of the Windows Form application, we need to create, or we need to make an example. Example is the best thing for learning something. Okay, so if we are at the text box at this point, which means that this gives, or this create us a string pointer for an input variable at this point, and then we can use this string box. So we can run this program. Then we have the text box definition block in here. So I can give a name, or I can give a C# programming is fun, or mechatronic is hell, or Oliverak is a good guy. To create a Unity application is the main function string block at this point. Okay, so we can give the char character to this text box. Okay, and so how are we gonna use it? Because the main problem is to use with the collaboration of the bottom one. And so if we are push this text box, then we have the general properties related to the text box one, which means that we can use this property, or we can set this property related to the how our application is going to run in the real-time application, or the graphical programming user interface. And so in order to change the parameter of this program, then we can set some specific point, or we can set the sum, or we can give the some specific attributes this text box. Aliprok is going, but I'm not sure about that. Okay, and so the text was given in here. If I add some specific strings at this point, and then Mehmet is initialized by using this text box. Okay, but so I left an empty space in the text, but this button is a specific class, and so its name must be changed like this one. Textbox1 is a class name, or the object name for the C# programming. Okay, and so specific name, or the property of the text was given in here, so I can change it text user. I can give that, and then this program is a variable or object of derived from the system.windows.forms.textbox. Okay, so in C++ programming is a variable of is an object of some specific class, and the main class is the text box, but I can derive, or I can create a new object from the text box class. Okay, so this whole things is a class in C# programming, but it's a template, which means that we can change all the properties of these things. Okay, so I can add some specific text box in here, and then I have the text box 1 and text box 2 at this point. Okay, so I can change the whole property of the text box 1 in here, or I can change the text user properties at this point. But how are we gonna use it, or how are we gonna control of these two things? Okay, and so the button in here, and then we can push the double click at the left side, then we have some code blocks in here. The form one code blocks means that the whole design pattern has a specific namespace or codes to write a specific program, which means that if I click this button and then the private void button click function is created from the C# Windows form application. And so if I click this program, then I can run this function block in here. Okay, and so if we test this program, then we have the text user in here. Okay, and then this is the type of the text box, but the form1.text user was given in here, and then each of the text user has a class, which means that, or has an object, which means that they have specific function and specific property related to the text box class. Okay, and so if we pass the text user.text, which means that the get or set the text associated with this control, which means that if I push this button, then I can set C# is a fun programming language. How about that? And so I can run this program. Then if I click this button, then C# is a fun programming. Okay, but the text box value is not enough to show the whole things. Okay, and so I can increase the length of this text box, and then if I run this program, then we have the button of this button. Then the C# is a fun programming language is created in the text box form. So we can visualize whole things by using this class structure, text box, button, or something like that. And so we can add the some button or the property of the some related specific function blocks in here, which means that the button is a class, but the button one is an object with related variable or parameters in here. Okay, and so we can learn how to eliminate or how to examine these code blocks, because if we are pushing these things and then we have another namespace with the partial class form in here. Okay, and then we have the public form one, which is the constructor of the C# programming. Okay, are you familiar with that? Because in C++ we can set or we can write this program, and it is declared from the public notation, and so whole initialized components was given in here. But in another code, which means that the partial class form one derived from form was given in here. So we need to use this designer code and form one CS code in here, because the whole components or the whole C# programming is given in here, and we need to find or we need to learn the property or the function mechanism of these two things in order to get knowledge about how to be used in C# application or the Windows form application. Okay, so we have the two class variable or the class form one, but in the same page. So which means that this class is a partial class. So there are two parts in the two separate form CS application. Okay, but the compiler sees it as a one class, which means that we can divide to some class in C# programming, because in designer we have the several function or methods in order to create this design form. Okay, so if we are looking at this partial class form 1 and this class form 1, in the first place the designer should be revealed with the same object in here. So the private system component model components which give us a null in the first place, because it's a private element, which means that the only form 1 can reach this value. But in the second place, the protected overrided void dispose function in here, because the whole elements or the whole variable are created in dynamic form, not static, because in the real life experience or in the real life application, which means that Windows form application is only be run at a dynamic form, which means that we can create a variable by the definition of new keyword. Okay, so in order to delete something in that form design, then dispose must be called at this point. Okay, and at the third place we have the private objects or definition in here. Private means that the form has its variable, but the definition type is the system.windows.forms.button in that position. But the button 1 and text user and text box is automatically added in here. So if we are at some label at this position, and then label must be given at this point, so C# can automatically add these things into the form 1 designer code. Okay, and so if we are looking at the Windows form designer generated code, which means that it's automatically generated from the C# Windows form application. Okay, and if you're looking at the components of these things, we are looking at the initialize component at the first place, because this button means that this is the form application class address pointer. Okay, and then button, its element, but it's a derived from the button class, and so we need to add, or we need to create a dynamic array structure in here, because the button is a class and we can create it by using the new keyword. And so if we are added anything into the form 1 application, then these things are added in here, because in the first place label 1 does not exist, but we add this thing, and then the automatically initialized component can add this code into the here. Okay, and so button 1 features can given at this time. Okay, so in the form application, form 1 has a button with the name of the button 1, and so if we are change its text box, which means that calculate can be given at this point, and then form 1 updates whole information. Okay, and so if we are using if we are changing this property, we can use this property section, or we can use the form 1 designer CS code block in here. And so it's another important thing is that we have the event handler program, which means that if we are using, or if we are pushing this button by using the calculation of the something, and then hold the things in C# programming by coordinated from the event handler. Event handler is a static class in that position in which we can run, or we can call a thread for these things. Okay, and so if we are run this program, and then we have a push button in here, and then in the program if we push these things, and the event handler button click 1 is called at this point, which means that form 1 application has a private void button 1 click function. So this event handler collaborate or the linked to button into this function. Okay, this is the simplest way to tell the mechanism of the event click, but it's a important parameter because we must use these things in order to create or in order to use the function blocks or the operations in C# programming. Okay, it's an important parameter. As the same way, text user parameter is given in here, and text box and label was given in here. Okay, and so each of them, the button has a functional operator, but the text box is not, and so event handler does not need in the usage of the text user. But in C++ programming, this is an address of any object, which means that in C# programming form application, it's called a form1 in this user. But the form1 is specific variable or class variable, which we are called the text user, derived from the text box. Okay, but this is class, but it's a nested class structure is given in here. Okay, should notice that the location is a parameter of the text user class, but we can link the form1 with the button, label, or text box variable. Okay, it's an important because the object-oriented notation can be completed by using these things, because whole things in C# programming Windows form application can link to another. Okay, which means that we can use the graphical notation, or we can use the functional operator. For example, the calculation of the sum 2 points, or the sum or addition or subtraction or multiplying can be called by using this button block. Okay, and so in order to implement all these things, we can use the private void button click 1 in here. We should write the whole code, all the functional operation into this code. Okay, and then the form application can be run at this time. Okay, and so we can push these things, and C# is a fun programming language, is added to this string value. Okay, so now we can pass the creating some examples at this time. Okay, and so we can pass the example session. In the first example, we can sum two integer variable at this time. Okay, and so we need to add two text box in here, and we can copy by pushing the control command at this point, and so we can add the label character in here or variable in here. And so in order to set the label name, we can look at the property section in here, and so name is the label 1, and we need to find the text variable at this point, and so calculation of two variable or variables can be given at this point. Okay, and so we can copy of these things like this one, and so the number 1 and number 2 can be given at this point. Okay, and so we can give a diagram, and then we need to add the button blocks in here, and so button text can be given as the calculate, and then we need to change the name of this button, okay, because it's a reliable for the have to be used in C# programming, okay. And so button, the calculate sum blocks can be given at this point, okay. And so the name of this variable is named by the but calculate sum function, okay. And the text box can be given as text num1, and this can be given as text num2, okay. It's a object name of this button, okay. And so if we check this program and we can run this program, then we have a error because the name text user does not exist in the current folder, okay. And so we can delete it and we can set the whole things in this position, and then each variable can be set by the designer, okay. And so if we are pushing the calculate button, and then this event function can be created in the form application, okay. The initialize component, the whole things can be given at this time, and so we can add some specific function blocks or the specific code into this diagram, okay. And so we can define a double variable with the name of the result, and we must check the variable name in which the text num1 can be given in here. And so we can set the double num1 is equal to the text num1 variable, text num1 variable with the text parameter. And now this is the double value, it's the type of the double, but the text is come from the string notation. And so we can convert this text into the double, okay. And so double is a class in this position, and double parse is a function of the static function. And so double is a structure in the C# programming, which means that it's a natural, it's not a natural type of the double. So someone is updated or is derived its own double class in this position, okay. And so if we are using this parse notation, we can convert the string representation into the double, okay. And so in the next steps we should define the double num2, and then double parse function can be called at this point, and text num2 text can be called at this point, okay. And so we must update the result value with the name of num1 and num2, and then we should pass these function blocks into the result section, okay. And so we need to add a label to show the result of these things, okay. And so label 4 was given in here, and then number 2 can be copied in these things, okay. And so the text of this number, the result value, was given in this position, okay. So label dot 4 is an empty space, and then label 4 label result value can be defined at this point, okay. And so the label result dot text can be equalized by the result to string variable, okay. And so the text is a label text, and the result is a local variable. Double result can be overloaded by the toString function, which means that the result is a double, but if I use this notation, then I can convert the double value into the string notation, which means that the label result dot text, okay. And so I can run this program in this form, and then application 1 is running now, And so calculation of two variables, which means that the 3.4 and 2.2 and calculate is the 5.6 at this point. Okay, and so I can drive a number of things or number of function definition at this point, and so the calculate can be redefined by the sum function block. Okay, and so the text or the design name, the calculate sum, can be given at this point. Okay, and so I can copy of these things for the specific notation of this program, and then sum can be translated with the sum notation, and the subtract can be given in here, and other sum is the multiply function can be given in here, and the divide function can be given at this point. But the button must be updated, calculate divide, and but calculate specific function multiply, and subtract is the but calculate the subtract. Okay, and so if I run this program, then multiply and then divide operation at this point in the same page written. Okay, and so we must use the but click sum click is added into these two things. Okay, and so event handler mechanism does not work at this point, because if we create this notation, then if we run this program, we hold the function 3 4 sum. Okay, so I should define the hold the values of this notation in the form designer. Okay, so if we are using the calculation of the summation, then this but calculate sum click should be added at this point. Okay, but I can use the definition of these things at this point, and now I can go to the view, find all references at this point, which means that this notation can be added at this point. So this notation calculate sum, calculate subs can be given at this point, but this should be updated from these things. Okay, and so this from should be updated mul click, and so this form should be updated by divide click. Okay, and so we need to write a specific function blocks at this point. Okay, and so this must be changed by these things. Okay, and now we can use this notation, and then for multiply, for divide, and so this must be mul and this must be divide at this point. Okay, and so we have specific error in this time, but if you run this program, then we can run this notation. Okay, sum. Okay, but in this form now the calculate can be called by the sub notation. Okay, so in order to subtract operation, or in order to do the subtraction in this form, then these things must be changed with this diagram. Okay, and so I can run this program, then we have 3.1 and 1.1, the summation of these two things, and 4.2, but subtracts is equal to the 2. But multiply is also an addition operation, and divide is also addition operation in this point, okay? And so I need to update the mul operation at this time, and so the mul operation or multiplying operation is given at these two things, and these things must be changed with the divide operation in here, okay? And so naming rule violation is given in this point, but it's not an important parameter because the form designer must be clicked at this time, okay? And so the system event handler is a useful thing to click or to define a specific object or function blocks at this point, okay? And so I can run this program, then I have the 3.1 or 2.2 in this point, the summation of these two things, and 5.30 subtracts these things, multiply these things, and divide these things, okay? And so 10 and 5 can be given in here. 15 is for the summation, 5 is subtraction, multiply is 50, and divide is 2. This is the simple basic program of the C# programming. It's known the calculator program. But in C++ application or the C++ coding, we have the specific constructor object for anything, the creation of the C# or the C++ programming. But how we can use these things at this time? So we can add to this notation. So form1 is a constructor object for the form1 application, okay? And now I can show some simple message blocks at this point. And so message box is a static class, which means that it has own function and property in order to do or evaluate hold value of this class, which means that we cannot use the object of this class. We can use this class in public class form application. And so we can show a specific message at the beginning of the program, which means that hello world, I am a C# program, okay? Which means that if we rerun this program, because it's a constructor, this message must be given at the beginning of the program, okay? And so if we run this program, then hello world, I am a C# program, and then we must push the OK button in this point, and then we can set the number of these two things, okay? And 3.3, and this must be 2, okay? And so we can call the sum notation by the event handler program, and so the subtract is 1.3, and multiply is 6.c, and divide is 1.65, okay? This is our first C# program, because the form designer is a very useful tool to create a graphical design application, but we need to remember that each of the form1 class is a dynamically created in C# programming, and the partial class means that these two class separated or divided into the two class form or C# form. And now in the first place, form1 partial class implements the whole function blocks and class itself, okay? And the other things is to use for the initialize the whole graphical components of the C# programming, okay? This controls to add these things, and then we can create this function. And so this name is related to the Form 1 application, and so C# programming for the best mechatronic engineers. If you pass this class, you could become this one, okay? And so Form 1 name these things, and so we can update this name, mechatronic engineers, okay? And so in order to change the text value of these things, and so main program application at this point, and so application rerun at this time, and now this program C# programming for the best mechatronic engineers is given in here. But if you cannot pass in this class the best candidate mechatronic engineers, now this is the best program or best application for the C# programming application, okay? And so in the next week we will have a complex structure or the complex problem in order to accomplish to writing in C# programming. And so we will give some specific detailed information about how to use a C# programming based on the class notation and the properties of the C# programming, okay? Have a nice day and be safe. Don't be a corona. Allah belanı versin.